Fast forward, I'm looking for a guitar player. I'm standing at Ray Hennick's Heart of Texas Music there on South Lamar where the Alamo Draft House is now standing.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this hand-drawn Castle Watchtower heavy metal with all the names, a couple phone numbers on it. I steal the card. I wish I still had it. It wasn't like a peel a number off thing.
Okay.
You know. And I stole the card. And I ran home to the phone and I called the number next to Billy White's name.
Yeah.
Hello, is Billy there? Yeah, hold on, please. And this little voice comes on. Yeah, this is Billy. You don't know me, but my name's Jason, and I play bass, and I'm in this. I'm recently been singing, and I'm in this band, Fallen Angel, and I'm not looking to steal you from your band. I just don't know anybody. I'm trying to find like-minded people who have the same get up and go as I do about what's going on here.
Right.
And he's like, he didn't say, yeah, sure, I know some people. He didn't say that. He said, I've heard of you before. And I'm like, okay, my hat fell off,
wow.
right? I was like, what? He goes, yeah, man, word's getting around that you know, I guess some of my friends saw you guys play, and, you know, your set list is similar to ours at this point, and da-da-da-da. And I'm like, well, you should come over, is what he said. I put my right. You know the game. You know the rest.
Fuck.
I put my bass and a little amp in my shitty car, and I drove over to his house. And his parents still live there.
Wow.
Kind of Shoal Creek area. And I bring my bass in and my amp. I don't think I touched it. Because we, you know, I ding dong. I might have been still wearing the leather jacket. And this would have been May. Only 2 months after the Saxon Molly Hatchet show.
Right.
2 months after. And
then
I
when you saw him,
still didn't put it together.
Then when you saw him,
I still didn't put it. I don't even know. I don't even know if I did that. I think it was years later. I was like, oh yeah, Eric pointed him out. Oh my God, you know. And it was years later, I think, because I'm slow. And ding dong, you know, the man of the house, Papa White, comes. You know, yeah, can I help you? Like, this kid ain't selling candy bars.
Yeah.
You know, is Billy home? And he's like, yeah, here you go. And then Mr. White moves out of the way, and there's this like heavy metal monster kid with hair down to his ass, like just like when you think heavy metal rock star and you think of the picture, it's Billy White with the jersey and the, you know, skinny, and I think he had bell bottoms and was barefoot and had hair down to his ass. And I'm like, Billy, I'm Jason, what's up? He's like, yeah, come on in. And we went straight to his room, and he picked up his guitar and he just started shredding.
Wow.
Again, love at first sight. Couple days later, they were rehearsing. Watchtower was going to rehearse.
And they would rehearse at the...
wait, I think it goes like this. Billy said, hey, we should go over to Doug's house. I think Billy gets in my car, and we drive over to Doug's house. Hey, man, Doug, this is Jason, and da-da-da-da-da. I remember we went down to... I think it was cool because they didn't have cars yet. They weren't driving yet. I was like a few months older than them.
That was just an added perk of knowing you.
They just jumped in the car, and we went down to UT, and we cranked up my my jam box, and like played air guitar on the steps of UT, you know, downtown, and we just tore up the drag down there. We were just punks, and it was awesome. And I was like, man, thank God that my mom.
Now you knew.
Thank God that this is like, I'm getting along. This is too much fun, nerding out on all of this shit.
Your mom's like, "Where's Jason?"
Hadn't even heard Doug play bass yet. Holy mother of God! Yeah. And all I needed was if Billy is in a band with this guy, I'm just in my main. I'm just like I'm something's gonna blow up. So I hung out with those dudes all night.
At the rehearsal, was Travis there?
I'm about to get there. So it wasn't the next day. It might have been a couple of days later. I'll just give it that for fodder. I'm at their rehearsal. Hey, yeah, we're going to rehearse. You should come over and listen. Just hang out.
Yeah.
Because they knew that, they just wanted to hang out with their new heavy metal buddy.
Right.
They probably wanted me to meet Travis, too. Meet Rick and da-da-da-da. I met Rick, and so I'm sitting there in Billy's room, little bitty room. Used to be a garage, like a one-car garage. So build a wall right there. That's how big. Drum kit, amp, Crazy. So I'm sitting on the floor, loud as fuck. You know what I mean? Sitting on the floor. And they're playing their original shit. And they're 16 and 17 years old, still in high school or whatever. And I'm just going, what kind of... It's heavy metal because it's loud and fast.
Right.
But I'm like, what kind of fucking heavy metal is this? Right? An hour goes by. And we're getting along, and Travis Allen's like mic stand and his microphone, his PA, all his shit. And there's a set list of songs that they do. It's like, I don't know, 25 songs or something. A lot of cover songs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
you're like, I know some of those songs.
Yeah, of course I do.
I know how to sing a lot of those songs, by the way.
Of course I do. And then here it comes. I don't think Travis is going to show up. Do you want to sing a couple cover songs? Just pick one off that list. And I'm like, oh, are you sure? Okay. Right? The first song I ever sang with Watchtower was Motorcycle Man by Saxon.
Wow.
Ironically, that it be Saxon, right?
Wow.
Yeah, it is kind of wow. So
that's kind
I
of...
just filled in for I wasn't like, oh, yeah, 10 seconds later, oh, you got the gig, we're kicking him out. It was about, maybe a week later, Billy called my house and just blurted it out. We just took all of Travis's shit over to his house, set it on the porch, and rang the doorbell and ran away. And I'm like, whoa, what? Yeah, we want you in the band.
Wow.
We were children. I mean, that's not how you treat someone when you're going to let them out of their band.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of like when you think about how Metallica canned Dave Mustaine. It's kind of the same thing.
Same way.
It's like they throw a Greyhound ticket on the floor and kick him and wake him up. Hey, get up. Your bus leaves in an hour. You're out of the band.
Yeah.
Whoa. When you're a young teenager, you don't have respect for one another. You guys don't necessarily, we as humans don't know how to necessarily treat each other at that age.
Right.
You don't know how to grieve. You don't know how to deal with heavy situation when you're that young. But it's funny, but it's not funny that Travis answering his own door and seeing all his shit piled there with basically a note that said, fuck you. It's terrible. I wouldn't wish that upon anyone.
But you were elated as fuck to get the gig.
Well, I was like, okay, damn, that's hardcore. Damn, y'all some mean motherfuckers, but okay, here I go. So we rehearsed that night.
Right.
You know what? I had to call Mike Solis. I immediately hung up with Billy and called Mike Solis, and I said, dude, guess what just happened? I had only been singing 6 months.
Wow.
I had only been singing 6 months. You have to put that into perspective. So there's the singing thing.
Mm-hmm.
Roundabout, you could say I cut my teeth as a singer, learned everything I know from really just being in Watchtower. Not so much Fallen Angel because didn't really know what I was doing. It was when I had to sort of learn how to write melodies on my own.
Were you singing on the Watchtower songs too at that point?
Well, I had to learn their material. Yeah. And we started playing still backyard parties. Watchtower, because of the age we were, it was still, high school kegger parties and shit like that. Total dazed and confused shit.
So there were covers, originals, obviously.
Yeah, about 12 Iron Maiden songs, about 15 Judas Priest songs, a few those we did some Acceptance, some Raven, and those bands were brand new.
Right.
3 albums out by some of those bands, right?
And obviously people knew Billy White, and people were learning about you, and I guess
people knew about Billy White, Rick Kolaluka, and Doug Keyser because they had already been in a couple of other bands that played high school parties, and it was tight knit.
Right.
But there was a contingency. There was a South Austin vibe. Billy was a little bit north. He went to a different high school than Doug and Rick, who they were at Crockett, south of the river. Billy was north. But there were punks and freaks at both that bled together when it came to Mischief and Metal. That's my new album title, Mischief and Metal. Kidding, that's terrible.
So when did obviously at that time, it was fun to play the gigs and then be part of that scene. But when did you guys start kind of recording some demos, and what were some of those first early demos about?
Yeah. The original material that they had back then, when you try to compare it to what the world knows as the sound of Watchtower, it was kind of like the chicken or the egg, whichever you prefer, that turned into something else. I think the seedlings of this tone and the color of the band were definitely in those early songs.
You're talking about like the prog technical stuff?
Yes. Some song titles are very kind of just like cheesy metal sounding, like City Midnight. That was a Watchtower song. Tricks of the Trade. Fighters to the End. Oh man, the cheese factor was still there because we were kids.
Right.
A lot of the titles are, there were other song titles that came not long after that were bits and pieces from older material rehashed into newer songs. Therefore choking out the older material. Like,
was Meltdown one of those songs?
Not yet. This is pre-Meltdown.
Oh, okay.
And the idea of writing socially aware or anti-socially aware lyrics and songs about war or nuclear fallout, or basically the mission of the appropriate style of lyric that Watchtower would ultimately end up having, was budding, right? Billy and Doug were the lyricist and main songwriters. And I didn't question it because the material was there. I came in. The time signatures, even on the earliest inception of Jesus, that ain't AC/DC. There ain't no 4/4 there. You can't dance to that. What the hell is that? They would literally hand me a set of lyrics, on, say, a new song or one that I'm to learn, I don't recall singing anything that Travis their singer prior, ever did. I don't remember them going, yeah, Travis sang this, but I want you to sing it now. I don't even remember that. There may have been one or two. But there were no recordings of Travis, of the singer prior.
Right.
So it was all new to all of us roundabout. They would tap me on the foot. Here's a lyric. I'm holding the lyric, and I got a microphone just like this, and you know, Billy or Doug's, you know, they're playing some jacked up riff, you know what I mean, and I can't make any sense of it. And then when we tap you on the foot, that's when you start singing. What kind of jackass shit is that? You know,
Hey, it worked.
it did.
It did work.
It did.
I know.
But then, you know, of course, after a while, there was no foot tapping anymore. They didn't have to go hold my hand anymore, right? So I really learned a lot about singing an inhuman melody line of lyrics of words that I couldn't even pronounce over a time signature that is used mainly in jazz or improv, played at the speed of light, which in my eyes, the closest thing to that would have been at that point, like Rush, progressive bands. Yes, Rush, King Crimson, any progressive weird, which was basically embraced by the hippies when you think about psychedelic and, you know what I mean, odd time signatures. And I mean, even the Grateful Dead, believe it or not, I know that sounds weird, had some odd things going on in their early music. So it's kind of, you know, Pink Floyd, right? The weird.
So you kind of had to reinvent yourself
Yes.
as a singer
Yes.
because they were so progressive. And
Even though I wanted to sing, you know, like Bon Scott and
Yeah,
Brian
yeah.
Johnson and Geddy Lee and Rob Halford and,
Yeah.
you know, and all of those guys, all of my idols, I still wanted to sing in the stratosphere, which is what they liked. Because really, what Watchtower really wanted to be at that age bracket, they just wanted to be Rush. I mean,
Yeah.
they loved Iron Maiden. They loved all the new rock and what was now becoming heavy metal. You know, those words, heavy metal, were still kind of like different in 82, 83, right? When you think about heavy metal, that's like the phrase heavy metal had only become a bumper sticker a year prior. 2 years, 3 years prior, maybe in certain circles.
And the thing too is that, like,
They didn't call it heavy metal in 76. Journey was playing with AC/DC and Judas Priest. You know what I mean? And they didn't call Journey heavy metal.
Yeah.
And if they did, you see what I mean? It was one leg was still longer than the other. It wasn't dancing quite yet.
And then when they talked about heavy metal was just one slab, one genre back then.
That's right. Well, rock and roll. Hold on. I'm not trying to correct you, but
No.
rock and roll was one genre.
Yeah.
That's what you really mean, if I may. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like Journey and Cheap Trick would play with Judas Priest and Nazareth and Moxie and AC/DC and Ambrosia. Or blues artists, you know what I mean? Like what's Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush? That's blues. It's just loud, but it's blues. It's classic blues. You know, he was kind of Stevie Ray Vaughan before Stevie Ray Vaughan, and he just liked it a little bit louder, like Hendrix.
Yeah.
But Hendrix was blues and jazz, just played with, you know, volume and hits of acid, which also makes the prog thing come into view a little bit more about what we're about to talk about.
Before, had you, the band, come to San Antonio prior to the demos being released? Had your introduction to the San Antonio metal scene happened yet?
No, that happened in 83.
So a year later, and I know.
Yeah, we were cooking, just to use a term, we were cooking up songs and what ended up becoming Watchtower as we know it. From May of 82 right up until really the release of of the appropriate release of the official release of Energetic Disassembly, which was almost 86. So it took 3 years for us to really get it to where we were proud. And then there's a lot of things that happened almost immediately after that. You know, we're really talking about a short period of time.
Right. Really quick, I have a quick question. Is it true that you had to re-record Energetic Disassembly? Because
Like
weren't
three,
y'all gonna
like
do it?
3 times.
Didn't y'all have a deal with Rainforest and then they kept
Yes.
that it didn't happen?
Yes. The label kind of went belly up. Things were changing.
But you had already recorded it for them.
Rent was due. There were other reasons why maybe it didn't come out, and there were other reasons why that was okay with us, because we would have re-recorded it anyway.
Oh, okay.
There is like a divided audience that, even though they love the trophy of, you know, the original release, first pressing of the vinyl of what became Energetic Disassembly, who prefer the Boss recordings, the early recordings down on Broadway in San Antonio, which would have been between like late 83 and 84.
Was that the cassette demo? Was that the...
No. And the Meltdown demo, as it's now known, was still yet to be out.
That was the 4-song demo?
That would have been in 84 that officially came out.
I've never seen that.
It's super rare.
I wonder if Fullweiler has it.
Yeah.
He has it, right?
Couple copies, maybe. Rodney Dunsmore. Oh yeah.
Oh, Rodney has everything.
Yeah. So you know, those archivists, they have all that.
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
Multiple copies, and they probably paid too much money for them. Bless their hearts. So yeah, your history is really, really close. But I've already forgotten where we were on the edge here. Where are we right now?
Transitioning and coming to San Antonio.
Okay, so we're still in 83. And Kill 'Em All is still not out yet. Pretty sure at this point. Late 82, 83.
Mm-hmm.
We had recorded those early Watchtower songs on a 4-track or an 8-track at one of our buddies' house. There was a band called Entourage. This is 1,000 light years before that crappy TV show. Entourage, and we played a lot of kegger parties, you know, flatbed trailer stage type, you know, somebody's grandpa has a ranch, we're going to have a keg party. Entourage and Watchtower would play. Entourage was badass. I remember they played Rush and Pat Travers and Toto, and they played all kinds of cool shit, you know. And we played the Rush, but we would go from Rush to Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, and they would go from Rush to Pat Travers and Pink Floyd or whatever, right? So they had a 4-track machine, I think, and we went to their house and recorded our earliest songs that were never really officially released. I remember licking stamps and sending copies of those songs to the earliest.
In a cassette form?
Yeah. You know, 2 tape decks. Hey, bro, can you bring your tape deck over? And I'd wire them together and make shitty copies.
Yeah.
And I'd lick stamps and hope that the mailman wouldn't crush the cassette, because I didn't have padded envelopes.
Right.
I'd lick stamps, and I'd mail them handwritten shit to fanzines.
Yeah.
In Florida,
Yeah.
in Iowa, in New York, in California. Of like, I'd get these addresses that were, you know, shitty Xerox, handwritten dub after dub, copy after
Yep.
copy, hanging on bulletin boards and
Yep.
on the blank. Heavy metal fanzine, looking for demos, shit like that. Okay, that's a reality. And that's starting to happen with those earliest demos. And in hindsight, we were like, oh, we shouldn't have sent those out. But we were proud. We were excited, to be becoming a legit rock band.
Right.
So let me fast forward a little bit. So as we're still working on the sound and the songs and stuff like that. And I had started pen paling with a bunch of different people out of state. Crocus Headhunter opening for Def Leppard Pyromania 83.
Here in San Antonio.
No.
Oh.
Frank Irwin Center, Austin, Texas.
Oh, sorry.
I'm in the front row wearing a leather jacket. 83, hot as shit. Front row, headbanging, Headhunter, right?
Yeah.
Rocking out. And I'm shoulder to shoulder with this dude who's wearing a leather jacket, and we're like, all, just like bonding.
And you didn't know him.
Did not know him.
Yeah.
Knew all the words. So Crocus ends, and we're still standing there in the front row, I don't know how we didn't get thrown out. Our tickets were like way up there. Seats were suck seats. And we're going, he's like, are you in a band? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm in a band. Are you in a band? He's like, no, but I live with these dudes. I'm from San Antonio, but I live with this drummer and bass player who are in this kick-ass band called Slayer.
And you're talking about Ricky Warhite.
I am talking about Ricky Warhite. And
Yep.
I was curious as if, did you ever get to meet Ricky Warhite?
No, he
Okay.
was probably a little bit before my time.
Legendary.
Yeah,
He's
I
a
know
legend.
he was like
He was a
the
vessel.
street teamer
Conduit.
before there was the street teamer.
Total vessel. He
was the publicist before the publicist.
Yeah, his ship was if you got to ride on his vessel and his ship, it was because he let you in because he was that kind of a soul, and he was in love with heavy metal as anybody else who
Right.
was either creating it or standing in line to buy the ticket. But yes, he was a street teamer type of a
Yep,
thing
yep.
because he was probably in with Joe Anthony and 99.5 Kiss people and, first guy in line at all the concerts and, the gauntlets and the leather jacket and the midsummer and really in love with it. And he was friends with the local musicians. And he was one of those type of scenester. He was the guy, right? He was one of those guys. And
Had you heard of Slayer before him?
Of course not. Of course not. Watchtower hadn't played out of town.
Right.
We just
And they
we were
weren't-
only starting to be this fish in a pond. I
and
didn't
they
say
didn't
big
come
fish.
Play Austin either.
No. It was still early. They were having the same teenage woes as everybody else, right? They were trying to figure it out too.
Yeah.
But I think they had just put out Prepare to Die.
Mm.
And they had just gotten Ron in the band.
Ah.
Like Art Virial made that record and some kind of falling out, and the history of S.A. Slayer is, and I just want to call him Slayer, but
Right.
appropriately.
Right.
Chris Kronk used to be in Slayer,
Yep.
and Art Virial is it. So when you just kind of like call a stone in all its heaviness, Slayer is kind of this sort of hub of early San Antonio. Because all of the bands like Davey and all the, Seance and those dudes and, all of the historical sort of pond they were all fishing, just like there wasn't a whole lot of heavy metal in 1982 and 83 and 84 in Austin, Texas.
Yep.
there was more going on in San Antonio, and it was as close-knit as it could be within our very small pond. Ricky Warhite was the vessel.
Right.
And the idea of me and Billy, I'll just go into it. Me and Billy, Billy, I met this dude, Ricky, there's this band Slayer, and they have a record out. What? Let's go. We got in the car and we I-35 South. We went to Ricky Warhite's house, and I think Dave McLean answered the fucking door.
and Donnie Van Stavern was there too, right? Because Donnie and Dave live with them?
Dave lived there. I don't know if Don lived there.
Oh.
I don't. It doesn't matter at this point.
Right.
But McLean was living there, and Bob came over. Bob Catlin came over, and this is before they called him Bob Dog. That's how long ago this shit was. And
he had hair too.
Long hair.
Yeah.
A green van, no AC. I think it was an old green Ford van.
Oh God.
And when they took us to Hog Wild, and they took us to, I don't even know. There was one Taco Cabana. Maybe in '83. Maybe there was one, the very original Taco Cabana. Parambital, maybe? I don't know.
I don't know.
San Pedro, I don't know. Anyway, all day long, we didn't, you know how when you're like 17, 18 years old and you're in a hot-ass van in the middle of Texas in the summer heat, you don't give a shit. And then like 10 years later, you're like, I ain't getting in that hot ass. You got AC? Oh, I ain't riding with you. You know what I mean? We didn't give a shit. There's like 4 or 5 headbangers in that shitty old van.
Ricky's,
around
was that Ricky's van?
No, Bob's Catlin.
Oh,
yeah.
Bob Catlin's van.
And there may have been some weed and some beers and whatever. And we were young. So that happened. We didn't get to go to a gig or a rehearsal. We just went down and met the dudes and talked about rock and roll for what seemed like 24 hours.
So when you first met Slayer, Jarzombek was already in the band.
Yes, but I don't think that we met Ronnie like that day. Me and Billy. Yeah. But whenever like Ricky would have a party there at his mom's house.
Yeah.
Billy was her name, Billy Warhite.
Yeah.
Whenever they would have parties, like a Slayer party, and I don't remember them being completely out of hand. 30, 40 people, and that's a lot for a house party.
Yeah, yeah.
Over on Danville, which is close to where Todd Bird, TC, lives. Babcock area, Fredericksburg, right over by where Daddy's used to be, which is where Metallica Raven played in '83. Okay, so we're not there yet. So I don't really remember when, we would, anyway, me and Billy would go to, we'd drive up from Austin to go to those parties, or at least I would, and bring some friends with me, and just, my friends who wouldn't know any of those people would get along with them great because everybody was into the same shit. And
did you kind of feel like, I guess, like the S.A. Slayer guys were like a little bit ahead of Watchtower
because
at that time?
They had a record out.
Because
we thought that was just like, these guys are God because they have a fucking record out. I mean, It's a vinyl. You can buy it in a store. That was like weird. That changed the way of our, like people can enjoy this legitimately in the warmth of their own homes.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like making you a household name. I get it now. It's like reading the Bible indoors.
Yeah. You
can now listen to heavy metal, that your friends made in the garage anywhere you want.
It legitimized them as a true band.
That's what's cool about recordings, and that's why there are so many vinyl heads and music collectors, is because that's the fellowship.
Yeah, yeah.
Even when you're by yourself and you're listening to music, that's a thing. There's that's magic happening. Like back in the olden times, where people would go to hear live music? Church. People would horse and buggy on dirt roads. They would go to a church, and there would be fellowship, and they would feed you. And it would basically be like a giant fucking party at the church grounds. And there would be music and dancing.
Yeah.
The first gigs ever were church.
I'm going to do that later today. Full Weiler's going to come over here, and we're going to drink some beers and listen to music. That's all we
shit.
do. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, we've been wanting to do it for a long time.
That's beautiful. Where's he at?
He said he's going to be here around 2.
Okay.
We may still be talking.
I might still be talking.
I think
So we're only in
question 3.
we're only in 1983.
Oh God.
You need a chair?
No. He's working.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, so
yeah, so they have a record out, and we're in
and
cahoots.
it was the brotherhood too
Yes,
that you love.
it was the beginnings of something. It was the beginnings of something amazing, and it was a love affair, right? I met, Steve Cooper, who and I share the same birthday. Did you know that?
No.
Me and Steve Cooper were both born March 18th. He was a few years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm meeting all of these characters. It wasn't very long after, and I still have the flyer. The phone rang. This was it. This was the shit. The phone rings, and it could be one of the Slayer guys. Am I on the cable? No. It could have been one of the Slayer guys. I don't recall who it was. It doesn't matter. The voice on the other side, can you come to Helotes, San Antonio, and play this 3-day 4th of July festival? I want to say 1983. Our first time playing an out-of-town gig, Watchtower. And, Saber Sabotage and Slayer and Wizard and this whole, everyone who played hard rock and heavy metal. I don't know if Hey Yoka was still a band or doing... There may have been some dudes from Hey Yoka in another band that played. Whatever. It was that kind of... It was early enough in the historical scrolls of knowledge that could have... Some of that older 70s crowd could have been on that same stage.
Right.
And it was a super high stage. It may have been like an old movie outdoor theater, but it seemed small. But the stage was huge.
It was high.
Yeah, and it was kind of a redneck stage, but there were bikers everywhere. There was a beer stand, and the mountain of equipment on the stage just looked like a pawn shop of gear, right? And that was our first gig.
Okay.
And
outside of Austin.
4th of July. It was in Helotes.
Yeah.
4th of July blowout bash or something like that. I want to say it was the 4th of July. I could be off on the date, but I want to say that was it. I'll have to look up the flyer. But there was a 3-day banger. And I think a couple of the bands that had dropped off, they didn't want to play a Sunday. We played it twice, I think.
I was about to ask that.
I think we went on a Friday and played, and we went back on Sunday and played.
Nice.
And we played covers and we played whatever, but I remember it like it was yesterday. Me in my spandex pants, midsummer, hot as fuck. When Slayer played, we hadn't seen Slayer yet. See what I mean? We hadn't seen Wizard yet. We hadn't seen any of these phenomenal heavy metal bands that are now historical markers and the reason that you and I are even sitting here.
Right.
Mind blown. So happy. It was like I was just jacked up on candy and, cola. I was so heavenly blown away. The sound system probably sounded like ass. It was hot. Didn't care. Teenage angst, fist flying, jaw agape. Whoa! All of the above was happening, not just on me, but everyone's like, oh my God, this is the greatest. How can I outlive this moment? It was one of those kind of things. Slayer was covering Anvil and Merciful Fate and all of that shit. They're idols. maybe they did Raven too. They did some Raven and Accept 83 and what the current of those bands.
Right.
Because those bands were still fucking new. So that was an incredible moment. That was our first gig in San Antonio.
Did you, obviously, just from what you're sharing, we're really impressed with the Slayer guys' performance that day. Did it kind of want to make you...
And it wasn't just them. I realized that San Antonio, as a scene, had it way together.
Right.
And we didn't have shit.
Right.
It was soon after that Watchtower, I might get shit for this,
say it,
soul-handedly created the scene in the heavy metal scene in Austin.
I believe that.
Arguable. I'd be willing to take the couple of hits that we had a big hand in that.
Of course.
So Wizard. Impressed with Wizard. Impressed with a lot of the bands that played that day that I hadn't heard of yet. But it was mainly walking away with Slayer and Wizard that we were like, or at least I was like, brothers from other mothers. Unbelievable. Can I say brothers from evil mothers?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I see old Buster footage and it blows my mind. I see old.
He's
Slayer
great. He's great, man.
He's amazing.
So it wasn't long after that I think Slayer dudes turned Bob O'Neill, like the studio guy, Rainforest Records, onto some Watchtower demos or live video or something, and he was like, "Get those, bring them in here." And it was no contract or anything. It was just bring them in here. I'll record them. Fuck it. All I need to know is that you guys vouch for them. So we recorded Energetic, or what was our first record, in there with our shitty equipment. Later that year, we went back in '84 and did it again with new equipment, and our songs were better. During that '83, '84 wiggle room there was rumors, and I can't pinpoint anything. There was just some disrupt in the Slayer camp about the idea of Steve Cooper not being in the band for a minute, and those guys called me, "What would you think about da-da-da-da-da?" And ironically, I was kind of like having a little bit, I'll just call them growing pains, because remember that thing? Teenagers don't know how to treat each other, and you get weird, and you don't know how to say, "I'm sorry, I love you, bro." That doesn't happen when you're punk-ass kids. You're like, "Fuck you, man." Fist, throw a couple punches, and like, "Oh, fuck it, man." And your parents are like, "You guys," you know what I mean? Like, you guys are going to kiss and make up. And your parents are always right back then? Kind of a weird little moment there. Went to some Slayer rehearsals, sang a couple songs, if I remember correctly.
I recall
Didn't
hearing
happen.
that.
Didn't happen, but that was early. That was 83, 84. That was around the time Go for the Throat was recorded already, but not out yet. Because they had broken up before Go for the Throat came out. Talking Slayer. Right. Late 84, where Slayer had broken up, and this isn't necessarily about me, Metal Blade releases a Show No Mercy by a band called Slayer.
Yep.
Then there's that whole thing. Hey, I got Slayer coming to town. What do you think about you guys reforming S.A. Slayer to open the show? And they were like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a greatest moment in heavy metal history. That's one of the greatest moments.
Slayer versus Slayer like a son of a bitch.
Right. Because it wasn't really a versus. They weren't fighting over the name or anything.
Right.
They actually got along extremely well and became friendly.
Yeah.
Is how the story really goes. Yeah.
I know we moved on from Ricky Warhite. Whatever happened to him?
He passed away. I don't know how or exactly when, but it's been some time ago.
Yeah. Okay. I just never knew. So let's move on if we
There's
can.
been a lot of people pass away.
I know. We live in precarious times, and it's hard to believe.
Well, it's just because we're
We're
old.
older, yeah.
Yeah, we're old.
And there's some people who they don't take care of their health either.
Right.
And that causes, an early demise.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yep.
So, yeah, I never knew. Let's move on to 1985. So you release officially Energetic Disassembly. What was the reception like and how did it feel for you to kind of finally have this record out? Now Watchtower is legitimized.
Technically January of 86, but 85 the word was out.
The word was out.
Everyone, the fanzines, the demo was popularized, the Meltdown demo. Some versions of the Meltdown demo had extra songs on it. Maybe there were some live tracks just taken from video, audio, or something. Mm-hmm. Anything to get the name out, we were trying to do that. And it was mainly me, because I was the one writing people and licking stamps, so to speak. Kill 'Em All was out. Kill 'Em All had come out. That's a giant thing to think about to get put in perspective, because that's still one of the biggest moments in history. Is the beginning of Metallica, an American metal band, and the Big Four, as we know it. Mm-hmm. There would be no Metallica without Dave Mustaine, and there would be no Megadeth without Metallica.
I totally agree.
There would be no Metallica without Motorhead. There would be no Megadeth without Merciful Fate. When you think about the style of music and guitar playing and songwriting, right? I feel like, and I'm just preaching here, sorry.
It's okay.
I feel like Lars and James became better songwriters because of Dave Mustaine.
Of course, I agree.
And Cliff Burton. But I do feel like because of Motorhead and Diamond Head and all of the records Lars brought to America with him when he all of that shit, all of the OGs, and Lars's love for Deep Purple and things like that, I do believe that Lars knows how to compose, and he and James in the garage relentlessly knew how to write a great rock and roll song. That when Mustaine got in and they started writing those songs together in a very short period of time, had created a real American heavy metal. Mm-hmm. Now on the East Coast with Anthrax, kind of the same thing was happening. Their input was early Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and things like that, which definitely have a play in it, but maybe not as immediate, right? Just need to say that, because you're already jumping to 85. By 85, Watchtower had already opened for Trouble, L.A. Slayer. Mm-hmm. In 86, we opened for King Diamond and Anthrax. But we had already played with Grim Reaper and Exciter and Laz Rocket, and you know what I mean? That all of these bands from East Coast and West Coast were already starting to go, we need to get through Texas. There's some shit happening in Texas. They're reading about it in fanzines. There's this band Watchtower. There's this band Slayer. There's the da-la-la-la-la. Our scenes had finally arrived by 84. That's a short period of time. Yeah. But I owe it all to the fanzines and whoever licked a fucking stamp.
You did.
Well, yeah, and other people too. There were people in Dallas.
I'm a huge advocate for a lot of the work that
James Rivera.
You have to do on the back end.
James Rivera was licking stamps.
Yeah.
One of the greatest shows Watchtower ever did. The first time we ever played Houston was whose ever idea it was, I Want to Kiss Them. It was Slayer Watchtower Hellstar in Houston, Texas, at a giant warehouse, Consolidated Arts warehouse on Westheimer. 84. Incredible. Wow. incredible moment in Texas metal history. Someone made T-shirts, all 3 of our logos. I would kill to have one of those.
All for $10
or less.
Wow.
And that's legendary.
That is.
Yeah. So, it's fucked up, man.
Yeah.
Okay, 85.
Yeah.
86, the record's out, but 85, we have arrived.
And I don't know if I'm jumping too far ahead again, but it was around that time, too, that Billy White was starting to exit the band.
No, it would have been October of 86.
Yeah, 86.
Still got a year and change to go before Billy's just growing up. Growing up, as I call it.
Yeah.
Because the things that you're into and the things that you've gotten to do that you're proud of, just as a human being, are not always the things that you're stuck being remembered by when you're a punk-ass kid. That's why I call it growing up. Decisions made in your late teen years are your memories, your first memories of, in my book, growing up. I feel like he was just growing up. We were upset, but that's 86. 85, my man.
Yeah.
What do you got in 85?
In 85, you're doing all these shows, opening up all these headlines. What were some of the highlights for you? Obviously now you're kind of meeting other musicians from all over the country who are involved now in the national metal scene.
The infamous shows at the Cameo Theater and at the Ritz Theater in Austin.
Yep.
Cameo, downtown San Antonio, Omni Productions, and all those kick-ass people.
Via Fontana.
Via Fontana was 80, 83, 84. That was
before.
That was the shit.
And you have to quickly...
That's why it's really great that the Via Fontana was still around when that was the place where the scene was starting to, that was ground zero.
Yeah.
Like Hemisphere Arena and Via Fontana, and right there, that's the beanstalk. I'm telling you, that's the beanstalk.
I believe you.
That's holy ground. When you guys go down there now, don't think, oh yeah, I used to... La Semana, whatever. Fuck that. No, dude.
I believe you.
No, dude.
I believe you.
Hella Waits, bro. Wasn't even out yet. Hella Waits wasn't out yet. It was Haunting the Chapel. Was brand new.
Yeah.
L.A. Slayer had one record out and an EP. Still on Metal Blade. Still touring in a Camaro.
So let's talk about
it was their first tour. It was their first tour, a U-Haul and a Camaro.
You talked about San Antonio, and it's like, oh, we came here and we saw, the music scene too. But the fans, let's not talk about just the musicians, but the fans from Southside San Antonio really loved Watchtower.
I love me some satanic Hispanics from fucking Southside
from
San Antonio.
Southside.
It's unbelievable how dedicated they were and are to what the fuck it is we're talking about right now.
Exactly.
There was no prejudice. If you flew the flag for heavy metal, you were brethren. I'm from Corpus Christi. I'm used to being the only Walio in the room. So this was another way where there is no color. There is no prejudice.
Right.
It's all one love, and it's all, you know what that is? That's God.
Yeah.
That's God. So everyone in a room freaking the fuck out, loud, crazy, thunderous metal coming through the PA from the years of 83 onward is my church.
Yeah. Energetic Disassembly has just, become this, kind of timeless piece of art. that represents exactly what you're talking about. You know, we sit here, you know, geez, almost 40 years later, and, you know, I still listen to that record. And when you think back about the release in 1985 and what this record really did for the band, you know, really now it could be distributed and people were listening to it. How were you feeling about not only Watchtower but about yourself? Because as we talked about earlier, you know, your aspirations were always to be kind of, you know, a legitimate musician in a legitimate band, and not only just putting out stuff, but really stuff that was making an impact in people's lives. Again, you know, going to the church, you know, this is our church, Watchtower. I mean, I meet people today who are just Watchtower freaks, you know, and that record, and the people in it really just kind of changed music. And to me, you know, and no disrespect to the S.A. Slayer guys, but to me, I love Energetic Disassembly far more than I do Cut the Throat. I felt that record,
Go for the Throat.
Go for the Throat. I mean,
That's okay.
It was just musically and technically, and your voice back then, you was just so impactful. It's just so impactful, and it still impacts people today who are listening to it. How do you kind of relate to all that?
Even though I sound like I have rubber bands on my balls and I just sucked up helium.
Yeah.
Because when you think about what was happening in heavy metal music, that was only one part of the dynamic of a heavy metal singer when you look up heavy metal singer
Sure.
in the dictionary. That's why it doesn't really bug me anymore. I just laugh it off. But, you know, everybody think, you know, heavy metal, why? And they just throw a high note or something, you know, or they go, yeah, or whatever, and they stick out their tongue like Gene Simmons or something. Like, they really think that that's all it is heavy metal. And to me, they don't know and have not become family with heavy metal. If that, you know, if that's what they think of when they hear the term heavy metal. When I hear my voice on those old Watchtower songs, I have to think about, okay, well, I was very young. I'm only using my voice as I know how to use it, as a trend followed from my idols. There were other singers and other things going on and everything prior to me, basically in the learning curve of what to do in a song. And you have to admit again, and this is going to get talked about a little bit more in a second, how different Watchtower was compared to Slayer, compared to just like thunderous, you know, 3-chord heavy metal, Saxon, whatever you want to call heavy metal at the time.
I was just about to say that.
Watchtower is this completely different animal because it sounds like all of the instruments, and you've heard me say this 1,000 times, it sounds like all of the instruments falling down the stairs at high volume in perfect time. If you imagine that for a second, you know, all of the, you know, a drum kit, you know, a guitar amp, a guitar, a bass amp, and a microphone, and all of its players all falling down a giant set of stairs, but in time. That's what Watchtower kind of aspired to be, but at the same time, we didn't go, okay, let's be the weirdest fucking band in the world. We didn't. That wasn't the agenda or the mantra. We knew what we liked. The influences were all there, right? So thank you for all of your kind words about Energetic Disassembly. In 85, I had just turned 20 years old. That's still very young. I was still learning how to use my voice. The record finally started seeing, you know, licking more stamps. I had gotten fan letters from Florida, fan letters from New York, fan letters from California by way of Gene Hoglan, Chuck Schuldiner of Death, and Michael Portnoy from Dream Theater. And their band wasn't called Dream Theater at that point. It was called Majesty, and they were Berkeley students. And they had gotten a hold of Energetic. And Mike wrote me a letter saying, "This is the weirdest, greatest shit I've ever heard, and we are all fans of your record. Unbelievable. Here's a few copies of my 4-track demo, Majesty." And I wish I still had those Majesty demos. And I remember opening the envelope and reading the letter, going, "Whoa, okay." And then years later, this guy just becoming a god. Same with Chuck.
Yep.
Same with Gene Hoglan. That's historical moments. Another name I can say very carefully is Thomas Gabriel Fisher from Celtic Frost, Celtic Frost, whichever you choose, however you choose to say that name. Being completely transparent here, that someone as coming from an underground and more of a death metal side, as well as Chuck Schuldiner, 2 different parts of the continent, also coming through to tell the members of Watchtower, your music has inspired me to be this different thing other than just, blah, 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 even though that's kind of what, when you hear early inceptions of death metal, that's kind of what it is. The sound quality is bad. You realize on purpose because they're the anti-rock.
Right.
We're not trying to be Led Zeppelin. We want to be anti-Led Zeppelin. And I get that. That's hardcore.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily from hate or disrespect. I really think it's just coming from being hardcore and you live in an iceberg. Or in Florida, you live much like Texas. You live in the heat from hell.
Yeah.
And I think that's climate has a lot to do with your embodiment of how you sound, and it could be similar and it could be its own thing. Floridian death metal sounds like its own thing.
Yep.
European black metal and death metal sound like their own thing. So. In 85, 86, those types of things were happening where I was blown away by these people who had records out, who were the pivotal in their scenes collectively, and were making things happen on their own right.
Their own scenes, yeah.
And by 86 and 87 and 88, had already been through Texas, and some of us had already been through their state, right? In a very short period of time. So
the network.
That's right. Network
to establish
itself. It had finally come around, and heavy metal had finally become a glossy covered magazine, kind of.
And the media, the national media, was supporting it.
That's right.
And that helped a lot too.
And it was still underground, even though it had this shine to it all of a sudden. When you think about Johnny Zazula and Megaforce Records, and Roadrunner, which used to be called Road Racer over in Europe, and with Merciful Fate, and neat records in England that was Raven and Venom and Tigers of Pantang, etc., and all of that kind of a thing. More of the new wave of British heavy metal, who is starting to become cool and known in our scenes, and getting some underground radio play, not major AOR radio, but.
And then all the zines too.
Tape trading, fanzine. Here's my list of tapes. Write me if you want a copy of my list.
Right.
That was Xeroxed in someone's fanzine that, hey, if I send you 10 copies of my fanzine, will you give it to all your friends?
Yeah.
And those 10, same thing. And those 10, same thing.
Sure.
This is another reason why we were sitting here today, Rob.
Yep. I agree. I don't care if it's 5th generation copy. I still want it.
No.
I still want
Those are under the couch in my office.
Yeah, I want to go through your stuff.
Some
and check it
rare
out.
shit.
So let's kind of move on a little bit. All these great things were happening. You mentioned a short while ago you weren't happy, obviously, because things were obviously going to change with the departure of Billy, who was such an intricate part of the band.
Founding member. I find myself saying sometimes that Billy was kind of like the first, I won't say the originator, but the first guy I ever heard play something that what you could call the stop-start riff, where you got this series of notes and seemingly not in any order that make any sense. And then, with these stops at random play, he's going to play 4 notes and then 7 notes and then 2 notes and then 1 note and there's rest after every series of notes and then repeat it. Well, what the fuck is that? Well, once you repeat it, you start to realize it's a pattern, even though that guitar riff sounds like an old computer modem starting up.
Yeah.
When you kind of think about what it is that I'm trying to describe in words, becomes music.
Right.
So to lose him in your rock band, just to dumb it down a little bit, sounds huge. But to also, in the same breath, shed a tear and then immediately go, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Ron Jarzambek, motherfucker. Right down the road, who can do that? Who does do that?
Right.
That is beyond his means, probably, and that sounds kind of crappy, but I mean it with all respect because Ron, as a musician, is like on Mars, right? And we all know that. We all know that. Yep. Which is a perfect fit for Watchtower, who was reluctant to do it because he and Billy were tight.
Right.
And Billy was like, no, dude, you need to come do this.
Right. Oh, okay. Kind of gave him his blessing.
Well, of course.
Yeah. So when
Billy started playing a different kind of rock music.
Yeah.
It was a little bluesier. It was almost like he finally discovered the beauty of Led Zeppelin and the beauty of blues guitar. It's like full circle. It's like he learned. It's like, the first thing people learn how to play, and they learn how to play it wrong, but they learn to play Smoke on the Water using open strings. Ba, 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 ba. They play it all wrong, and they don't care that they're playing it wrong. It was almost like Billy discovered where that comes from after he could already play Eruption and any Randy Rhoads solo on Earth.
Right. Is he still
and
around?
And any Yngwie Malmsteen solo at that point.
Yeah. Do you still speak with
Billy?
him? Is he still around?
Oh, yeah. Not frequent.
Yeah. Is he in Austin?
But we have a bond, me and Billy. Yeah.
He's still in Austin?
Yeah, off and on. He's raising his son, who's a young teenager, 13.
Oh, gosh.
14 now, maybe. Billy had moved to... This is years later. He was in Austin for a long time. Years later, he moved to... He was producing someone's record in Mexico, and he met a singer, a female... I'll leave her name out of it. And fell in love and married and had a kid, and he moved to Mexico City, I want to say, and lived down there for years. And was still producing and playing second guitar and toured as side musician with a bunch of other people. And that was after he played on that Dokken record, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah. Interesting.
Because that's related to my history.
Yeah. So we can do this one of two ways. We can stay on the timeline. Yeah, because there's other things on Watchtower later on.
I want to stay in the timeline.
Okay.
So 86, one of the many most awesome historical moments in my life was Watchtower got to open for, this was 86, got to open for King Diamond on his very first solo tour, Fatal Portrait.
Right.
With Mickey D on drums. So...
Who now plays with Scorpions.
Not necessarily remembering Billy and Mickey D hitting it off. Maybe they met and they did hit it off. I don't know. But there's a connection there that happens in, I'll just say, 89.
Ah.
But it's, I had met Mickey D, it's like, oh my God, Mickey D, oh my God, King Diamond, and at the Ritz in Austin. I think that record was on Road Racer, still King Diamond. Merciful Fate was on Road Racer. Might have started to turn and change the name to Road Runner, maybe at that point, don't know. So that's a thing. We opened for Anthrax at the Ritz that year. Hellstar was on that bill. It was a Watchtower, Hellstar, Anthrax.
Is that the Among the Living tour? I think that was. Yeah.
86. You might be right.
Yep. Among the Living.
It was right after Armed and Dangerous, though. That EP. It was right after that. So it was same thing. Yeah. And we had Energetic out, and Hellstar had maybe their second record out.
Remnants of War.
Yeah, I think Remnants of War was new, 86, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Good timeline.
Yeah.
Great things happening. Great Texas things happening.
Do you kind of feel that was like the pinnacle of Watchtower at that time? I mean, looking back now.
Yes and no, because there's kind of like when you think about even my exit, Watchtower had a whole other sort of 9 lives.
Right.
Watchtower had a whole other chapter that shot them to the moon, and they became a worldwide legitimate band upon my exit, when you really think about it. Because there were labels shopping, looking to sign Watchtower upon my exit. Which is really a weird, sticky point for me, and we're going to talk about it.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I remember one time, the last time you were here, and you said that we were talking about you mentioned Riot, and you said, Rob, there's their Riot, and then there's the Riot of now. Oh no, there's my Riot. And then there's their Riot.
I can be a little bit more crystal clear if you want me to.
No, I'm not. But I'm making.
I will.
My analogy. I don't even want to talk about that. But my analogy is there was like my Watchtower, and then there's like their Watchtower. My Watchtower was always with you, leading the band. I was never. You're not alone. I was never in tune with the Alan Tecchio Watchtower. I was never in tune with that.
You're not saying anything bad when you say that?
Yeah, I'm not trying to be negative or anything, but it's just my personal feeling.
So by that time, I'm pen pals with Alan Tecchio. By this time. That was another letter I got from the East Coast. I'm Alan Tecchio, and here's a copy of my record and a T-shirt and a sticker from my band Hades, and we heard about your band and tape trade, and we got some songs, and whoa, we love it. He reached out to me. I'm writing back. The same thing happened with Jason Newsted and Flotsam and Jetsam before his whole thing. The network, as you called it.
Right.
All 85, 86... connections were being made. A story about that King Diamond show, Fatal Portrait tour. And there's a bunch of stories about that. King Diamond had, and I had already seen Merciful Fate in '84 at Joe Freeman with Exciter and Motorhead, and that was like Super Church, Exciter, Merciful Fate, and Motorhead. Oh my God! And everyone was there, yada, yada, yada. So here it is a couple years later, King Diamond. I'm in the dressing room with King Diamond, and he wants to use my wireless microphone. And he says, I've never used a wireless microphone. I'm afraid to break it. Tell me some things about it. Whether this is true or not, I didn't know. I mean, was I going to call the king a liar? So I'm like, no, here's the switch, and da-da-da-da-da. Hands me his femur crossbone mic stand. Hands it to me.
To connect it to it or what?
Yeah. Here's a roll of duct tape. Here's my cross. Here's your mic. Can you put it on there for me? I heard angels sing.
Oh, God.
So I'm sitting back there with King Diamond, duct taping my wireless microphone, kind of like I'm not worthy moment.
Oh, God.
Holding this human bone femur upside down cross microphone stand for the one and only King Diamond.
Wow.
I wish I still had that microphone. I would have dipped it in gold.
Did it leave all, when you took the tape off, did it leave all the gum stuck on your mic?
Do you mean, did it have Satan on it?
Yeah.
I really hope so.
That's the first thing I was thinking about. And I'm like, damn, is he going to leave like a whole bunch of gum on his fucking mic?
He was sunburned really, really bad. He was kind of sick, and that's kind of a legendary story. I think that he had a pool party at Liliana Martinez's house like days prior, and there was a bunch of San Antonio, radio people, and Liliana Martinez was a scene photographer around here for many years. A lot of her photos are in that book, As Viewed from the Pit. And Liliana was a giant supporter. Everybody knows who. And if you didn't know her, you need to look her up.
She's still around, right?
No, she passed away years ago. So, and she had moved to Chicago in like 2006 and 7 and 8 and 9 maybe. I got to run in her when Broken Teeth would play through Chicago. And that was the last I got to see her, was around that time. But anyway, she would have these pool parties, and she knew everybody, and she would invite bands, Metallica, Raven, da-da-da-da. That whole probably from 82 to 87, she would have these awesome times, and there's photo documentation, of course.
Yeah.
King out by the pool wearing shorts. No sun block. It's the 80s. There's no sun block.
Shit, he loves the sun.
So King Diamond, who is, Satan's left hand, from the cold Copenhagen.
Exactly.
Comes in Texas sun. He's like, fuck it. I'm in league with Satan. It's cool. Puts on leather pants a few days later, rubbing his sunburn. He's sick. He was not happy. Still sang his ass off. Da-da-da-da. Anyway, that's legendary stuff going on there.
Yeah.
86. I'm talking to Ron Quintana. Do you know who Ron Quintana is?
Yes. Did the zine out in California.
Metal Mania.
Yep.
He had one other name for that magazine. He had two names to choose from. He wrote them down on a piece of paper and told them to his buddy Lars.
One of them was Metallica.
Who Lars was forming a band. They were tape traders, and they had met. Actually.
Lars gave him the shitty name, and he kept the good name.
Metal Mania is a much better name for a magazine
than Metallica.
You should just use Metal Mania. Next thing you know,
I've always wondered if they paid him for that.
I fucking love that story.
I think they paid. Did they pay him a little bit of money for that?
That's so like gangster. That's so gangster, man.
Hey, that's the mind of
but
entrepreneur.
I don't think that you can come back and go, you owe me millions of
I
dollars.
know.
And Ron Quintana, he's not that guy. I mean, there may be a dark side to him or not. I've never heard about it or seen it.
Didn't he also do Rampage Radio?
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah,
KUSF at the college.
I'd love to meet that dude. Ron, if you see this, I'd love to meet you.
Oh, he's a king, dude. He's a king. He's running a little record store. I think it's called Ron's Real Records out in Northern California somewhere. And he's on my daily Facebook feed. I can't wait to read what he's going to post. He's always he's a photo freak. Yeah, you need to get on the Ron Quintana train. Anyway, we're pen paling. I found the letter that he wrote to me, hey, all my friends been telling me about your band Watchtower. I haven't heard it yet. I need to see that. Or maybe he's responding to a letter I sent him.
Yeah.
And what it might have been was like, I need to connect and play some shows out there. What do I do? If I may step back a little bit.
Sure.
After Metallica comes through on their first tour supporting Raven, another one of my favorite heavy metal bands from all time, I hook up with James. We're very friendly, and he gives me his phone number, his address, and we're immediate pen pals, me and James Hetfield. Well, I used to call the house all the time, and I stopped calling the house when they stopped answering the phone. Yeah, or hello, or hey, dude, what's up? Or eat shit, or whatever, just like, teenagers bullshit. Teenagers living on their own,
Yeah.
And I don't think they had an answering machine, but I remember calling the house one. I just call it the house. It was El Cerrito, infamous now.
The Metallica house.
Yeah, that's right. And Lars answers the phone. Q Prime. And I'm like, fucking Q Prime. Lars? Yeah, it's me. What's up? It's Jason, man. Was James there? Yeah, hold on a second.
So just on their management deal or what?
Yeah, it's when they were when they were signed. This probably would have been 86, 85-ish, 86. Things started to really happen for them around that time. Very short period of time.
Yeah.
Like Ride the Lightning times.
Yeah, Ride the Lightning.
These were things that James didn't disclose to me on a phone call from a fanboy from Texas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We just used to shoot the shit. And it was, a 5-minute tops phone call. Yeah, Q Prime, fucking Q Prime. It's Lars, Hey, Lars is the reason.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's because it's because of shit like that. Cause
he's the driving, and the driven man behind Metallica.
You have to have that.
You need to know that.
That third
no
party
one's allowed
negotiate.
to. You can talk shit about Lars all you want.
Oh.
All you want, you can talk shit about Lars. He's the reason. You fill in the rest of the
He's the mastermind.
That's right. So, in my times of hanging out with Metallica every time they came through, at least San Antonio and sometimes in Houston, but mainly Austin and San Antonio, they let me in. In the literal sense. Like I was hanging with those guys. I was in the dressing room. I was in the hotel room. I was hanging out with those guys. I was giving them rides places. All because of the networking, right? So that's how powerful that shit is.
Yep.
This is when Metallica was a new band. A lot of people didn't know them until Master of Puppets, and there were some, man, I just saw some band blew my mind called Metallica open for Ozzy. And they have some record called Master of Puppets. I guess I need to go buy. That's a story on the lips in the history, right? It was Lars on one of those phone calls, Q Prime, that I grilled Lars. It's like, where should I be playing and who should I be talking to? You need to call Ron. You need to try to play Mabuhay Gardens and the On Broadway. And Ruthie's in, and there's a couple of places here and there, and I'm writing everything down. I think I still have the piece of paper that I wrote down everything Lars told me on the phone that day.
Right.
Writing letters to Ron, getting Ron's number, calling him on Thanksgiving Day. I think I fucking called him. He's family and shit. Hey, we're eating turkey right now. Why aren't you calling me? Happy Thanksgiving. Anyway, Ron sets up a couple of shows. I sent him a stack of records. He puts them on consignment at the infamous Record Vault.
Right.
In the city in San Francisco. And we end up doing a couple of shows. One of them sponsored by Paul Bailoff. Paul Bailoff Presents. Original Exodus.
And that was in 86.
Correct.
And when you went to California for that trip, you knew that those were the last shows Billy White was going to do.
Yes. 2 shows. I had been on the phone with, oh God, I'm going to forget his name. This is terrible. We may have to fact check. We may have to look it
Who's
up.
that?
Shrapnel Records. I forgot his name.
Keep going. I'll look it up right now.
Okay. I was on the phone with, God damn it, because I hung out with him a few times, and he's very staple. We need a fact check. You can edit this out. The founder of Shrapnel Records' name is...
Let me see.
Sucks about getting old. Names and some partial stories fade.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah.
When it goes from A to B, I don't need to do anything, right?
No.
All right.
Fuck.
It's okay.
Mike Varney?
That's him. So here we're back on track. So I had been on the phone with Mike Varney from Shrapnel Records, which Exciter was on Shrapnel Records. He used to put out those U.S. metal records, with Scott Stein from Valkyrie was actually on one of those fucking records.
Yeah.
Or he was on some Mike Varney project record. I thought it was U.S. metal. But Mike Varney is the reason, you fill in the blanks, for like Marty Friedman and guitar players like that.
Yep.
Mike Varney is
Yep.
the reason, Yngwie Malmsteen,
Yeah.
shit like that. So Mike Varney is this guy that has reached out for Guitar Hero. He might even be the guy that even coined Guitar Hero in my book. Anyway, about replacing Billy. Who the fuck are we going to get? Ron's going, man, I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah.
That's weird. I don't know. Ask me again some other time. Fuck are we going to do? Mike Varney, who do I get? Oh, I don't know, man. Oh, what about fucking, Marty Friedman? Because he was living Bay Area, I think,
yeah.
at the time. He's from Hawaii. He had a band called Hawaii I was a big fan of. A lot of people don't know that.
Mm-mm.
And I'm not certain that in '86 he was invited to play in Megadeth yet. That
No.
might have been a year later.
Yeah.
Another fact check, right? So it's October of '86. For at least a couple of months, I had spoken to Mike Varney about Marty Friedman. I don't remember actually talking to Marty on the phone about it, but that Mike Varney had set it up to where, yeah, he'll be at the shows. I talked to Marty. He's interested. He wants to see you guys live. And I'm like, kick ass, potential.
Right.
I had to get excited about something. My band was fucking ending, or not
Potentially
really.
ending.
It could have been a, oh shit, what are we gonna do? I'm not done singing these songs yet. God, so many things were happening around that time, Rob. We get out to California. Walter Trashler from Rotting Corpse fame drove us out there in his shitty van. How are we going to get to California? Got these shows booked, couple shows, got an in-store at the record vault. How's a bunch of punk-ass kids with minimal cash? How are we going to get out to California from Texas? Surely we tried to book some shows between. Couldn't. I was talking to Gene Hoglan. I was talking to Michelle Meldrum, God rest her soul, who was in a band with Gene Hoglan called War God at the time, that I don't think ever had any vinyl release. I think they were on some comps. But Gene was in that band before he was in Dark Angel. And they were friendly. Pen pals and phone calls all the time. And they were in L.A. And they drove up to see us play at these shows in San Francisco. And that's a long fucking drive from LA to San Francisco. California's long, not wide, right? So, you know, I had a little bit of help booking a hotel room. Some of us sleep in the van, some of us in the hotel room. Walter Treshler from Rotting Corpse drove us out there. He did it for nothing. We drove through LA just for fun. Went down the Sunset Strip. Wow, trip. Rock and roll history, man. You know. Got on, hit the highway, rolled up to San Francisco, got there in the middle of the night, tired as fuck, and you don't care when you're 20, 21. You don't care. You stay up for days. I think we were drinking, you know, Big Red and eating Twizzlers the whole fucking way. Stupid. Some of us were drinking orange juice and water and whatever. Trying to, you know, I think Doug was in that van. Brian Bowen, who was our tech, still works for Dangerous Toys. Billy was in there. Jeff Tweedy was in there. And Walter. And me. How many people is that? 6? Holy shit. So we had the equipment and 6 fucking dudes. Gross.
Crazy.
That's fucking gross. If you asked me to do that right now, I'd be like, fuck
no.
you. I quit the band. Okay, so
you do these gigs
we do these gigs. I meet Paul Bailoff. Oh, my God. You're fucking
yeah.
Paul Bailoff. And he died a short time after, a couple years later.
Oh, okay.
Ron Quintana, we're on the KUSF. Oh my God, you know,
Yeah.
KUSF T-shirt, just like the dudes in Metallica wore in the magazines. That kind of shit. This is legendary, all in a short time.
Yeah.
A couple of years, right? So I get to ride the ride at Disneyland. I'm hoping to run into people. Oh man, I met the dudes in Mordred. I met people like that. Dude, you know, Alex Skolnick was at my shows in San Francisco. He was a fan. Gene Hoglan was there. All of this cool shit was happening. Alex Skolnick went to the radio station to hang out with me and Doug while we were on the radio.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to think, like, those guys are like gods now. Fucking gods.
That kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about how impactful that record was for people, for real metalheads.
They wanted to meet these weird kids from Texas who made this psycho metal. So I ride back to L.A. with Gene. They all get back in the van and go back. Maybe Doug flew back, or Rick and our manager at the time flew to San Francisco and had a nice hotel.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was nice. I'm sure it was nicer than the situation that I had created for all of these fucking headbangers. But I think Tweety and Billy and Brian and Walter were the only ones in the van going back. I'm almost positive that Doug flew back. I swear I got in with Gene and went back to L.A. and slept on his couch on Los Arcos Street in Long Beach for a week.
Wow.
Mordred dudes who were looking for a singer, they flew me. Their manager flew me from L.A. to San Francisco again just so I could hang out and they could try me out as a singer. I may have sang a little bit.
Those dudes are like really funky.
Yeah. Their record came
really
out as
funky.
funky, and it was. I don't think it was a good match, but they needed somebody.
Yeah. Who did they got? They finally
they were different. They were different.
Yeah,
That's why they liked Watchtower, because it was like this psycho music, right?
They ended up getting that Holderby. I think that was the guy's name.
I think you're right.
Yep. Holderby was his name, his last name.
Yeah. And those guys are still around. They're still alumni.
Yeah,
you know? And
so after your week at Gene's couch.
Yeah, Gene's couch. And, dude, I went to Dark Angel rehearsal.
Nice.
Who can say that?
Yeah, that's cool.
Holy moly. I got to play bass at a gig. I got to play bass during a sound check at a fucking gig.
A Dark Angel gig?
They're at Fender's Ballroom.
Oh.
Infamous room in L.A. Like, sound check. I play bass at a sound check. Here, Jason, play. Yes. Like, oh, fuck
So
yeah.
what did Marty Friedman think of the shows?
Yeah, let's get back on track. This is kind of fucked up.
I'm reeling you in. I'm taming you.
This is kind of fucked up, and this is kind of not fucked up. It's funny now. Is Marty Friedman. It's early October '86, and I think Marty Friedman is at the venue, but I can't see him. At this point, I've never met him face to face. So, fast forward. It's after the gig. This would have been at Mabuhay Gardens, the MAB. It's a tiny little place. And there's a band playing after us. It was a big bill. Don't remember who. So it's after, thank you, good night. I'm running around the club looking for Marty. What I think Marty Friedman looks like in '86. Long curly hair, skinny jeans, whatever. And I'm looking around and I see a bunch of dudes that look like him, but it's not him. And it was probably Testament, which was called Legacy at the time. It's probably them dudes. This is who I'm bumping into. That's Alex and everybody, right? So I'm looking around. I can't find him, and I run up to Rick and Doug, and I'm like, dude, I can't find him anywhere. And Rick and Doug say, you just missed him. And I'm like, what? Because I was the liaison.
Right.
Mike Varney, right?
Right.
And they're like, yeah, he's not interested in being in Watchtower, but he tried to headhunt us.
Oh, God.
Rick and Doug.
Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't take that personally, like, yeah, fuck your singer. But your rhythm section is fucking godly, because they are godly.
Yeah.
I can make an awesome solo record with you guys backing me up. Is the immediate. Sure. And that's probably what Mike Varney had told him anyway. You got to go see these fucking guys. The record is crazy, fucking crazy. Singer's kind of, helium, rubber band balls, but da-da-da-da-da. But I was the liaison, not knowing any other hidden agenda. That's why I did not take it. And I was like, well, fuck him. Wasn't that at all. He
was probably watching you until you left. Then he went to go hit up the band.
Who knows?
Who knows? How the fuck did he end up?
But it doesn't matter, because they didn't bite, and
sure.
It wasn't a problem.
Sure.
And it was okay. So Ron said yes anyway. So the funny here is years and fuck all years later, Ron Jarzombe gets hired to play second guitar backing up Marty Friedman. And they have a laugh about that story I just told.
Wow.
Yeah, which I think is fucking awesome. Here's another thing. One of my more recent to-dos is Howling Sycamore.
Yep.
On the second Howling Sycamore record, there is a guest appearance by one Marty Friedman on the ballad, which is one of my favorite songs I've ever done before. And even though I share a recording project with Marty Friedman, to this day, I have never shaken the man's hand or met him face to face.
Yeah.
Yet there's these stories I can tell about Marty Friedman.
Yeah.
So this is the connection that heavy metal has.